Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk. I'm going to present some point, essentially to put question for possible further open discussion. Let me allow to start with a little bit of a short history about ports and specifically about VTS. So the first radar-based port control was established in Dover, in the Isle of Man, in 1948. As you can see in this picture, it was very essential and quite basically at this moment. It was anyway the first approach to use a radar in the port control, and it was almost in the same years, in a couple of years after, followed by a number of ports around Europe, specifically Liverpool port and Rotterdam port in 1950 and 1952 and 56, who covered the entire area of Rotterdam port. Next, please. The reason of the port was to control, but we have a big gap up in 1982, when the Port of London was the first time an integration between a radar, sensor, and computer technology. It appears the big step forward, and the reason of that was essentially the same that are valid today as well. So limit the risk of congestion and incident, and improve efficiency of the port. Next, please. Follow the introduction of the computer, there was a public awareness of a potential incident that could happen around 1617, and the people and the community start to think about what could happen if a similar accident happened around the port area and the disaster consequence to the environment, traffic, and so on and so forth. And therefore, the development of VTS system and port control in general was improving also from the safety and environment point of view. Next, please. To summarize this very brief history, we see that vessel traffic services, and therefore port control systems, comes out with the key words of safety for the navigation and for the environment as well, and for the efficiency to improve port capability, utility, and so on and so forth. And basically, the essential system was composed by radar and VHF radio. This was already mentioned today, the value of the radio in communication and especially in the Arctic. Next, please. So let me now give a little bit of context about the Arctic. Probably you know more than me, but let me just summarize a few points to point out what are the elements and the value of the tools we are using there. Of course, Arctic have some condition like a vast and remote area. Currently, there is a lot of technology from the radio, of course, but also going to satellite. However, above the 70 north, there are still problems to have a proper coverage. And therefore, in the Arctic, even satellite is not efficient or not precise as it should be around in other areas of the world. What are the main needs, essentially? As been already mentioned today more time, there is a need to improve maritime situation awareness and traffic monitoring system and safety, to have a better information about environment condition, like sea state and ice on the sea, and to have a possible real-time communication. Next, please. This is more a comment, more things I was like to repeat again to underline the importance of radio communication. In Russia, they are still commemorating the 7th of May as the Day of Radio. And this stamp was a commemorative one, and this recall an event in 1897 when a distress call saved the life of a number of fish people. Something. All right.
How are you guys? Good, thanks.
Hello. And the event was a rescue of some fishing people that were removed on the coast. Let's move on to the next, please. Now, considering the Arctic, we could have a little bit of parallel to the brief history I just mentioned, because Arctic is starting improving business from the transport. So we are a little bit of the beginning of port control. However, we now don't speak about, let's say, normal or traditional ports, but we move to what is defined as smart
I'm sorry,
ports.
can you wait one second? So can everyone make sure that they have their mute button on, because somebody doesn't have their mute button on. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
So the question is, we are starting the new era of smart ports, but what is a smart port? So I can mention you a number of technology and process and so on that to define a smart port. However, I have identified a very precise number of question and answer in that video. So if it's possible to run the video now, this is from the people from Port of Rotterdam, and they explain exactly, she's actually explained exactly what a smart port is about. It's just a couple of minutes. Great. The video is right. Let's watch a 2 minutes video.
Ports should invest in digital solutions because it's where this industry is going, and the beauty of it is that we're a lagging industry. So we have fine examples of what digital change can mean for one industry. We've seen it in media, you've seen it in the obvious of the hotel branch and such. So what does that mean for logistics industry? The impacts could be huge. So as a port, you are a node within a supply chain, and I'm a firm believer that in order to be able to have the same function you have now, being the node in the physical infrastructure, you have to be a node in the digital infrastructure as well. So in order to be a port authority and have the authority and the ability to execute that authority, you need to be digital. For us, smart port means that next to the physical port that we are, we will also be a digital port. So that would mean that any quay wall we are building today has a digital twin. And the digital twin enables us to do predictive maintenance, to do predictive berthing, to do all sorts of other stuff that you can't do with just a physical quay wall. So that's the one part of the digitization. And that means that we can save money on our dredging, on our maintenance, on the patrol boats. It's really an efficiency of the Port Authority as an organization itself. And on the other hand, we see that in future we will have to receive autonomous sailing vessels. So in order to receive them, we also have to be able to communicate with a vessel that doesn't have people on board. So that incentivizes the need to go digital and be smart port. And the other part of our smart port concept is that we see a disintermediation going on within our industry. So the platforms are not huge, but you can already book a container via Alibaba. You see that Damco is doing a platform booking site. You see Flexport, you see Twill, Turvo, Cogoport, you see TradeLens and IBM. You see all sort of platforms popping up, and those are there to stay. They might not all survive, but there will be platforms in future. And in order for a port authority to communicate with those platforms, you need to be a smart and digital port.
Thank you. We can come back to the slides. So a number of concepts has been mentioned in the video, in the short interview. I may recall a couple of that. Next, please. One of the concepts was about digital, of course, but was about big data. Today, more times has been mentioned about the big data, how to use that, how to be provider of big data, and so on and so forth. So I want to address the smart port from the point of view of vessel. So if we consider a big vessel, it is impressive the amount of data that coming from one single vessel, IEEE vessel. Just to mention a few, there is some 2 terabytes of data generated every 100 days in a modern vessel. 13 terabytes of data sold to the owner, and so on and so forth. Also, the constant monitoring, the better route monitoring, preventive maintenance, and so on and so forth, can produce an estimated 20 million annual fuel cost saving, which is a lot of money, actually. So next, please. But one key point is not only to have a smart port, but also smart ship, because those things goes one by one. What is smart ship? Smart ship is the optimum, is the combination of a number of activities which I try to present in this view. We have, of course, the IT technology point of view. So we have artificial intelligence, big data, improving situational awareness, of course, decision support. Cybersecurity is a key everywhere nowadays, and so on and so forth. Then we have to improve the connection between the ship and shore. Somebody early today mentioned the navigation. That, of course, is the paradigm inside the data communication between ship, shore, and ship, and so on. Then everybody want to be green, because we need to improve, and there are a lot of from the efficiency and from the regulation point of view. And finally, we need to keep and improve safe on navigation. All those together are contributing to the concept of smart ship and therefore smart ports. Next, please. This is just a screenshot of digital twins mentioned in the video. Digital twin is a digital representation of a real situation, and it's what actually is needed, as well explained in the video. So I don't repeat the concept, just to give you a screenshot of a real application and how it's possible to do all the activity that people doing in a real port going to digital. Next, please. Now, this is a traffic image from satellite IS. Probably is very familiar to some of you. And I report here to highlight the one concept that was mentioned, and I want to stress a little bit before the next concept. As you can see, vessels obviously are covering some specific route for a number of reasons: safe, efficiency, so on and so forth. And just following this global picture, you may identify what in Europe has been named motorways of the sea. If you next, please. If we consider the European Commission have defined 4 main corridors corridor was the word used this morning by someone. These 4 corridors are those who going to improve going to improve the traffic. And of course, the corridors cannot be isolated. Next, please. This corridor have to be linked with the land corridor, let's say. The point of connection is obviously the ports. So the ports, and especially the smart ports, is going to play a very key role in the traffic, merging land and ship traffic sector, let's say. This also improve efficiency. Next, please. I don't want to go in details, but I just want to represent in a couple of you that the situation of this corridor and this integration between land and sea is very much present in Europe. Is probably even more present considering the China and the Maritime Silk Road. So China as well have a Maritime Silk Road integrated somehow with the land corridor, and have also created the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, who support the development of those 2 corridors. Next, please. And obviously, similar situation, it's happening in the Arctic. It starts to happen in the Arctic. And Arctic could be the next corridor for the traffic. Next, please. If we look globally, actually we have a number of choke points that are the part that could create some tricks, and I will explain in a moment. Next, please. This is a satellite view, and I want to use it to make 2 observations. The first one is we have now satellite technology able to do a lot of activities, from tracking, identification, and so on and so forth, and even very clear image like this one. And this is a picture of the Suez Canal accident. Next, please, which happened recently in March. And you can see this happened on 23rd of March. And 2 days after, there was already a queue of 360 ships in the south to north, south entrance of the canal, and 200 ships from the north going down. What I would like to highlight here is that one single ship and essentially one single choke create a global repair, global effect, and stop, let's say, the global logistic for 1 week and many other days after before restore. Therefore, the trend that we see on the port going to mega ports, mega ships, and the global logistic was just triggered in questioning by one single accident. Next, please. Before to conclude, I want to highlight another point. This is another example of how the global logistic, this global trend, is challenged. Everybody are affected by the COVID-19. This is a plot, this is some graph of the situation, simply speaking, of the presence of containers in the Shanghai port. And this represents the number of containers in and out. You can see at the end of the graph, that is December 2020 and February 2021, how this graph is going up. And that means there is an unbalancing, and we know that nowadays there is a shortage of containers as a global problem. The conclusion of these 2 elements that I want to put on the table is that some apparently external factor, like a COVID, like an accident for one ship, have blocked the global logistic around the world. So maybe someone start to questioning whether this approach to going global, to going to megaport, is truly the right one, or maybe we can to come back to some small port and some local area. That's currently an open question for the table. Next, please. The last concept I want to mention before to close is about people, process, and technologies. Sometimes, especially from the industry point of view, there is a tendency of improvement to be driven by technology. Actually, we can do exactly the same. First, we need to consider people and process. And today there was a lot of discussion about the local community and so on. But also we need to move the other way around. We don't have to start from the technology, but we have to start from the people, then the process, and finally the technology. So what I want to stress is any improvement have to start from a proper process and people, and finally add the technology. Similarly, also how, or let's say, which business model is better to improve, we need to create a community of corporate, startup, and investor. Next, please. And here I finish my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and remain for question and answer. Thank you.